Welcome back, everybody, to the Haunted World Tour. Today I have for you not so much a haunted location as a wandering spirit. I present to you La Llorona, Mexico's own weeping or wailing woman. She is akin to the banshee because those who picture her figure in white with a white veil know that doom and impending death is coming or disaster is coming, and she is a harbinger of that. And it is said that there's a lot of different interpretations to this. Some have said that she does not cause disaster but announces it. Others would use her as a boogeyman. A lot of parents would use her for children, not to be out wandering late at night, or La Llorona will capture you, because there's kind of a pyramid, because no one knows the actual origin of her story. So she could have been a real woman. This could be an amalgamation of a lot of different women that have been blended together, because as time has gone on, she's picked up certain traits and characteristics that are not original. I tried very much to stick with the more traditional stories and not modern adaptations. So she's not a vampire in this. She's not, she is a wandering soul. And that is evident in all of the stories. And while she is Mexican in origin, it is also said that she has been seen in other countries, even here in the southwestern United States. So she wanders around. She's not, just confined to a particular country. Same kind of like the banshee. If you are of Irish or Scottish descent of a family that has a banshee, then it is said that she will wail for you as well, even if you are not in your country of origin where your kin come from. Then it could be the same. Well, I don't really know. She doesn't really announce specific families. And there is the fundamentals of her story is she usually appears by water, some kind of body of water, so a river or a lake. She's always dressed in white with a white veil. And she's always crying or weeping. Some people will hear her and not see her. Some people will see her and hear her. And I guess some people will see her but not hear her. And usually the crux of the story is that she is a woman scorned in some capacity, and in a fit of rage has drowned her children. And now she is lamenting their loss and wanders searching for their souls for the rest of time, which is also, I think, how she became kind of a boogeyman for Spanish parents and grandparents or Mexican, Latin American families, so that they would be like, can't stay out too late, don't do this, don't do that, La Llorona will get you. There is an addition. Now, I don't know when this addition came into play, but she is also said to appear to rather solicitous men in a certain fashion. Now, whether that is part of her original lore or got picked up somewhere else is hard to tell. But she is... So one of the oldest representations, or one of the oldest stories we have of her, dates to 1502 and the conquest of the Aztec Empire. And it was said that she appeared as a harbinger of the fall of the empire. And La Llorona was seen through the streets weeping, denouncing the fall of the empire, saying, "Oh, my children, your demise has come. Where can I take you? Where are my children?" And this was in I just looked it up. Techniclan. I think I mispronounced that, even though I just looked it up, which is now modern day Mexico City. I apologize, some of these words are in Nahuatl, and even though I look them up, I may not nail them the way I want them to. Another story has her as Hernan Cortez's lover. Her name was La Malinche, which interestingly enough means traitor. And in the story, she gives birth to a son of Cortez's, and he takes her son away from her, and she never sees him again because he brings the child back to Spain, and she is considered to be an unhappy mother because her child has been taken away. And so she weeps and cries for her lost child. It is very possible that she may have been a real woman, and then other stories got piled on. In another story, it said that she is the goddess Quetzalcoatl, or Quetzalcoatl, and that the Franciscan friars forbade the people speaking her name, so they started coming up with euphemisms. And La Llorona, the weeping woman, was one of them. And then the most common story, this is one of the versions. Part of the story dates back more or less to the creation of Mexico and the arrival of the Spanish. She is a native woman who had an affair with a Spanish gentleman, and during the relationship she has 3 children, whom she loved deeply. They had their relationships for months, but they had to hide it, and so the bond of love would grow between them. However, she wanted her children to have a stable father and know that, he would always be there for them. So she started pushing for him to formalize their relationship, because everything can be done in secret. And he kept kind of ignoring her and brushing her off and finding ways to circumvent it. Then one day he rides into town with that's a different version. In this version, one day he disappears and he goes and marries a woman of high Spanish society, because he too was a man of high Spanish society, and he abandons La Llorona and their 3 children. And in a fit of despair and a desire to get back at her husband, she takes her children to the river one night, gives them one last hug to let them know how much she loves them, and then she drowns them. And when she kind of comes out of it, she realizes what she's done, and in return, I believe she drowns herself, and that's why she's seen by water. So now that she must forever walk wailing and crying and searching for the souls of her lost children. In another story, it says that she won't enter heaven until she has found the souls of her children. She's usually seen around Lake Texcoco, and that's where generally I believe she's said to appear the most, but she does technically wander, because there are stories, I think, of her being seen by the Rio Grande. There is another version from Fray Diego Duran about the Aztec emperor Moctezuma II was worried about the fall of his empire and the failing of his reign, and tales from the peasants were that they had seen this woman walking through the streets wailing and crying, and then she would disappear into Lake Texcoco, and which was located in the legendary Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan. So there's a variety of tales that have her weeping and white, then they kind of break from there. Some say she will chase you to your house or on the back of a horse. Others say she will appear in a wagon or a car as a hitchhiker ghost, which may be a blending of another spirit. Sometimes she warns of events to come or takes children. She's a harbinger of death or misfortune. In cases where she is approached by solicitous men, I have a story about that. She turns into either a ghost with no face, a skeleton, or a horse with a metallic head. There's another version that states that she was at one time a living woman who committed many sins. As soon as a child was born, she would throw it into the canal and drown it. She had many children until at last it started to prick at her conscience. Some think the priests spoke to her, or maybe that the saints came down and whispered to her and spoke to her of her evil ways. But she started to go out at night from midnight till morn, weeping and wailing throughout the streets. No one could see her unless it was absolutely deserted. It is said she would stop at a sleeping watchman and would wake him, asking, "What time is it?" He would see a woman clad in white standing beside him and with her rebozo drawn over her face, and he would say, "It is 12 hours of the night," to which he would respond, "At 12 hours of day, I must be in some city far away." And then she would shriek bitterly, "Where shall I find my children?" and vanish. The watchman would probably pass out, swoon away. They would lose all senses and become comatose. It said they became like the dead. And this would happen to a lot of watchmen, but the higher-ups didn't actually believe them, even though there were so many reports of this. And then one day, one of those higher-ups or their bosses happened to be walking home and was passing by the church of Santa Anita and saw this woman standing in dressed in white, and he approached her and started to have sex with her. And when he kept saying to her, "Lift your rebozo so I could see your pretty face," and when she does, it's the face of a skeleton, and she exhales this icy breath on him, and he just kind of faints dead away. And when he wakes up, he's incredibly disturbed and just hurries on home and is dead within a certain amount of time. They don't say if it's within the day, within, a week, but she is not a spirit that you want to run into. Then there is another inconsistency. Some stories say she had 3 children, some say that she had 2. And there's another one that says, according to legend, in a rural village in Mexico, there lived a beautiful woman named Maria. She came from a poor family, but was known around the village for her beauty and grace. One day, an extremely wealthy nobleman was riding through the village and stopped in his tracks. He had traveled all over the world and had never seen anyone as beautiful as Maria. He was mesmerized by her beauty, and he knew that he had to win her heart. Maria was easily charmed by him, so when he proposed to her, she immediately accepted. Eventually, the two got married, and Maria gave birth to 2 sons. Her husband was already traveling, and he stopped spending. Her husband was always traveling, and he stopped spending time with his family. When he came home, he only paid attention to the children. As time passed by, Maria could tell her husband was falling out of love with her because she was getting old. One day, he returned to the village with a younger woman and bid his children farewell, ignoring Maria. Maria, angry and hurt, took her children to the river and drowned them in a blind rage. Once she realized what she had done, she searched for them, but the river had already carried them away. Days later, her husband came back and asked about the children, but Maria started weeping and said that she had drowned them. Her husband was furious and said she could not be with him unless she found their children. Now she spends eternity looking for her lost children. She is always heard weeping for her children, earning her the name La Llorona. It is said that if you hear her crying, you are to run in the opposite direction. If you hear her cries, they could bring misfortune or even death. Many parents in Latin America use this story to scare their children from staying out late. La Llorona kidnaps wandering children at night, mistaking them for her own. She begs the heavens for forgiveness and drowns the children she kidnaps. People who claim to have seen her say she appears at night or in the late evening by rivers or lakes wearing a white gown with a veil. Some believe that those who hear the wails of La Llorona are marked for death or misfortune, similar to the Gaelic banshee of legend. Among her wails, she is noted as crying, "Ah, mijos," which translates to "Oh, my children," or "Oh, my sons." She scrapes the bottoms of rivers and lakes, searching for her sons. It is said when her wails sound near, she is actually far, and when she sounds distant, she's actually very near. It's really funny, because I recently read that about the aswang in Filipino mythology. So it is kind of interesting to see some of these stories that blend together or have a lot of similarities from halfway around the world. So the legend of La Llorona is traditionally known throughout Latin America, including Mexico, Central and South America. So the earliest published reference to La Llorona occurred in a sonnet written by Mexican poet Manuel Carpio in the late 1800s. The poem makes no reference to infanticide, rather La Llorona is identified as the ghost of a woman who was murdered by her husband. I have heard that as well, that after she kills her children, her husband comes back and then he ends up killing her. And then I think he commits self-forever sleep. So this is a very kind of complex story where there are a lot of different interpretations. Also, it's an oral history, so oral history generally tends to extend a lot farther back than written history, and it also tends to blur the lines and things get merged and meshed together. So this may be the story of multiple women. It could be the story of goddesses and mortals that have been mixed together, but regardless of how you look at it, if you should see a woman in white by a lake somewhere in Latin America or the southwestern United States, turn around and run. Plug your ears. Stay away from the windows. I don't know what I was reading. It might have been Beware the Banshees Cry, which was another book that I had read about her in, as well as I got some of the information from Judica Illa's Encyclopedia of Spirits. Sorry, I didn't mean to thump the mic. But there was a story where this family could hear her like walking along their property, just crying and wailing. I don't remember if any who may have ended up passing away or what misfortune befell the family, but it is, be careful. Run away. Don't go toward the woman in white. Just leave her alone. The funny thing is, the part with the hitchhiker is it doesn't say if she just appears in the car or the wagon, depending on the time period, or if someone has stopped to help her and she gets in. Because if you've seen Supernatural, I think the episode, I can't remember the episode. I can't remember if she's invited into the car or if she just appears in the car. And then she makes them drive her to the house where she drowns her children. And usually with women in white, there is some kind, in multiple stories, there is some kind of abandonment. There's a woman scorned, because they pop up around the world, whether it's Asia, the Middle East, here in the United States, South America, Central America. I don't know if I've ever heard any stories out of Canada, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. It just means I've probably never heard of them. But they are, they exist. They're out there. So, yeah, stay away from those ladies in white. Leave them be. Maybe carry rosary beads or whatever kind of religious item that you need on you, or protective crystals, especially at this time of year, now that the veil is getting thinner. You can never be too careful and stay away from the water, especially in this case. All right, my friends, take care, and until we meet again, happy hunting.